Hello and welcome to Village Physical Therapy's Lunch and Learn series. Today's presentation is on aging and balance, how balance changes and why, and what can be done about it. My name is Keith Bailey. I am the director and physical therapist at Village Physical Therapy in the Batavia location. I'm a graduate of D'Youville College, class of 2002. I have been with Village Physical Therapy since 2011. What is balance? Balance is not complete stability or lack of movement, but balance is minute corrections to subtle movements. These corrections act to keep your center of gravity over your base of support in relation to the pull of gravity. So your center of gravity is basically most of your weight, okay? And your base of support is where your feet are, okay? So if most of your weight is centered directly over your feet, then you're going to be in a better position of balance than if your weight is shifted to the side of where your feet are positioned. What controls balance? So the cerebellum is the portion of the brain that controls balance. It's the coordination center. If you look to the picture on the right, the cerebellum is the red area. Damage to the cerebellum by stroke or traumatic brain injury can severely alter your balance. In addition to the cerebellum, which is the central point of control, there are several overlapping systems that also help to control your balance. The visual system, the vestibular system, and the neuromuscular proprioceptive system. As we age, the effectiveness of all three of these systems decreases. The visual system. So the visual information is collected by your eyes and is processed by the occipital lobe of the brain. If you look at the picture on the right, the occipital lobe is highlighted in blue. This information is used to orient yourself based on the environment around you. So any movement results in a change of your position relative to other objects in your area that are both stationary and moving. As we age, our visual system may deteriorate due to conditions such as cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma, or other various conditions. This can lead to a decrease in balance due to difficulty in discerning our position in space in relation to other objects in our environment. So seeing your eye doctor and keeping your vision as good as possible is one way to manage the changes in balance as we age. The vestibular system, also known as the inner ear, the vestibular system contains weight-sensitive organs as well as 3 canals. Each of these canals is oriented in a different plane of movement, such as front to back, side to side, or rotation. You can see the picture on the right. You can count those 3 semicircular canals, all right? And then you can, everything is labeled there, but that gets certainly a lot more specific than the average person needs to know. So the canals are filled with fluid. When you move, that fluid lags behind a little bit, and that stimulates small hairs that are in the canals, okay, and that stimulation sends information to the central nervous system. Now, if you continue to move, the fluid catches up, right, and goes and then is moving in the same about the same speed as what you're moving. But then when you stop, the fluid briefly continues, which again stimulates those hairs, sending more information. All the information is decoded in order to provide details on the initiation, the cessation, and the direction of movement. The inner ear is also weighted with small crystals. These are called otoconia, okay? Because of the weight of the otoconia, it can give information on rate of acceleration, okay? Because if you are accelerating more quickly, that weight is pushed into the organs a little bit more, okay? As well as it also provides information on position in relation to the pull of gravity, okay? So you know, even if your eyes are closed, if you take all other things out of the equation, you know whether you are standing upright, laying on your back, laying on your side, okay? These things you'd know because your body can tell which way the weight is pushing, okay, on some of these weight-sensitive organs. Problems with the vestibular system commonly result in vertigo and loss of balance. Some of these problems include vestibular neuritis, Meniere's disease, and benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, or BPPV. There can also be more severe conditions such as tumors, infarcts, or cerebellar atrophy. Those conditions really need to be taken care of by a doctor or a specialist. Now, when we're talking about vestibular neuritis, Meniere's disease, and BPPV, these conditions are not specifically age-related, but they are more common as we get older. Vestibular neuritis. So this is inflammation of the vestibulocochlear nerve. This nerve sends information on balance and head position from the inner ear to the brain. Vestibular neuritis can occur in people of any age, but it is rarely reported in children. Symptoms include sudden severe vertigo, dizziness, balance difficulties, nausea and vomiting, and even concentration difficulties. Initial treatment includes vestibular suppressants, antivirals, anti-inflammatories, antiemetics, which are for nausea, and balance rehabilitation. Meniere's disease. Now, the cause of Meniere's disease is somewhat unclear. It appears to be the result of an abnormal amount of fluid in the inner ear. Symptoms include vertigo, tinnitus, which is ringing of the ears, hearing loss, and a sense of fullness in the ear. The symptoms typically last 20 minutes to several hours, rarely more than 24 hours, but they are recurrent, and they typically return. Treatment includes balance rehabilitation and medication for nausea. Lifestyle changes such as limiting salt, caffeine, tobacco, and alcohol intake do seem to help reduce episodes of Meniere's disease. Benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. So this is caused when those little crystals that I mentioned earlier, the otoconia, start floating through the semicircular canals rather than staying with the weight-sensitive organs where they belong. So when you move, and then the fluid starts in the inner ear starts moving, and these crystals start moving. Now, when you stop moving, the fluid continues briefly, but then the fluid stops. These crystals continue to move. And so they stimulate those little hairs in the canals, and that stimulation tells your central nervous system that you are still moving. However, this is contradicting the other systems, okay, your visual system and proprioceptive system. And this causes vertigo and what's called nystagmus, which is an uncontrolled movement of your eyes. And there's a few different types of nystagmus, side to side, rotational, but it's an abnormal thing to see. Symptoms are movement dependent and typically stop within a minute of stopping the movement. Okay, so you move, you get vertigo, you get dizzy, and if you stop and stay in one position, within a few seconds to a minute, the dizziness and vertigo will abate, okay, and improve. But then when you move again, it can start them all right back up again, okay? BPPV is typically diagnosed by a doctor or a physical therapist. We see this pretty regularly. The treatment for it is actually a series of movements that we would teach to you. And that series of movements is meant to slowly move those crystals through the canals and get them back to where they belong. And then you hope they stay there. The treatment is pretty quick, and it's actually quite effective. Some people only need one session. Some people do need a little bit more, but it just kind of depends on the individual. The neuromuscular system. So more specifically referred to as proprioception, which is the awareness of the position and movement of the body. Proprioception is more important to your balance than vision is. So what happens with proprioception is sensors in the muscles, tendons, and joints detect movement of the body parts, okay, as well as where they are in space. As you sway in one direction, that is reported to the central nervous system, which causes muscles to contract to correct that sway and pull you back in the opposite direction. Proprioception is very sensitive to aging as the detection of movement becomes more delayed. Therefore, the correction of movement is more delayed as well. This means that you sway further before the correction, which can result in your center of gravity, okay, or most of your mass getting outside of your base of support, resulting in a loss of balance or a fall. Loss of strength also has a significant effect to the effectiveness of these corrective movements. Okay, so if the muscles are not strong enough to pull you back and correct the sway, then that compensation will be insufficient, and your center of gravity could continue to move outside of your base of support, resulting in a fall. Okay, so this kind of actually goes along with last week's topic, which was sarcopenia and aging. Sarcopenia being loss of skeletal muscle mass. Neuromuscular system treatments. General strengthening exercises are great. Okay, Tai Chi is pretty popular for this because it's not only helps with some strength and endurance and flexibility, but it can also be fun. Balance rehabilitation is important, and endurance training. So being able to maintain activity for longer without your muscles fatiguing. So balance rehabilitation. You may have noticed that I've mentioned balance rehabilitation as a possible treatment for most of these conditions. Balance rehab is typically overseen by a physical therapist. There are different types of exercises that typically fall into one of the following groups, which are adaptation, substitution, and then compensation habituation exercises. All right. So adaptation. So one example of an adaptation exercise is a performance of head movement while keeping your eyes focused on a target. Okay. So let's say you were to hold a card with either lettering or a picture or something like that out in front of your face at arm's length. You keep your eyes focused on the subject matter on the card. Then you move your head side to side, up and down, diagonally, all while maintaining your focus on the subject matter on the card. And then you can make this more difficult by changing your position. You can start in sitting in a chair. You can move to sitting on an exercise ball. You could then do this standing. You could do this standing in a tandem stance, which is heel to toe, standing on a block of foam, which makes the surface more unstable, standing on one leg on a block of foam, or while moving, doing walking or going up and down stairs. Obviously, increasing the difficulty, increases risk, and should only be done if safe for each individual. You can also progress to moving the card opposite of the movement of the head. So if you're turning your head to the right, you move the card to the left, but again, maintaining your focus on the lettering or subject matter on the card. And then you can increase the difficulty of that by increasing your speed or progressing the positions as mentioned before. Convergence and divergence. So you have a target in each hand, out in front of your face, out at arm's length, and you move those closer to your face and further away as you maintain your focus on the targets or the subject matter on the targets. Okay. You can also alternate the movements, moving one towards you while the other moves away, and then vice versa. And then you can also progress the various surfaces as with the previous activities. Substitution activities. So an example of a substitution activity could be to hold two targets out in front of your face at arm's length. Okay. And you would have these targets separated by a bit. And you look at one of the targets with both your head position and eyes, and then you turn your eyes to the other target and then follow it with the head, and then bring your eyes back to the first target and follow it with your head. Okay. And again, you can progress by increasing speed, by putting the targets further apart, or by progressing the surfaces as described earlier. Target on the wall. So you have a fixed point on the wall. You look at it, then you look away from the target, close your eyes. Keeping your eyes closed, you turn your head back to look at the target, then open your eyes to see how close you were. Okay. You can, again, make this more difficult by progressing the surfaces. Sitting on a ball, standing, tandem stance, single leg stance, standing on foam, etc. Habituation exercises. So standing activities, you can start on a stable surface, such as the floor, and then move on to variable surfaces, such as a foam block, or having other things on the floor that make it somewhat less predictable. Okay, you can also do variable stances, such as feet wide apart, feet close together, heel to toe, single leg, etc., or foam as well. You can add visual distractions, okay, that make it more difficult, such as turning your head to focus on different targets while you're in these variable stances on variable surfaces. You can also perform target tracking. So doing any of the previous surfaces and stances while adding in playing catch with a ball. Okay. You could also potentially do that while walking. Okay, just to make things like that more difficult. Again, all of these things can potentially be dangerous depending on the level of your balance. So while you are trying to improve your balance and challenge your balance, you definitely have to make sure that you are staying safe while doing so, and being under the observation of a physical therapist is one way to maintain safety with these activities. OTAGO. So OTAGO is a balance program that was specifically designed for the aging population. They are relatively simple exercises that are meant to be performed at home, but under the care or direction of a physical therapist. Your physical therapy visits may be few and far between, or perhaps you do regular physical therapy at the beginning of the program and then taper that off as the program progresses and as you improve. But it is designed to be a long-term home exercise program that is continued long after the physical therapist is no longer involved. It is meant to be continued indefinitely, okay, and as a way to promote sustained balance, okay, throughout your lifetime, to hopefully minimize risk of falls and injuries related to falls. So how can we help you? Village Physical Therapy does offer comprehensive treatment for balance concerns associated with aging. We can help with a lot of the issues that I've talked about today. Our PTs can evaluate the cause of your balance issues and create a program to help. A lot of the times, it's not just one thing. It may be that your vision is not as good as it used to be, and your proprioception is not as good as it used to be. Or it could be that any combination of any of these problems. You can make an appointment with us by contacting our office directly by phone for our Leroy or Gananda, Walworth, or Batavia locations. You can visit our website at www.villagefit.com and click on Request an Appointment, or you could email us at info@villagefit.com. Direct access. So direct access is interesting. So since 2006, New York State residents have been legally allowed to see a physical therapist directly without a prescription from a physician. There are some limitations to this. Medicare, workers' compensation, no fault. Those require a doctor's prescription, but most independent and private insurance companies, you can go to physical therapy for up to 10 visits or 30 days, whichever occurs first, before needing a doctor's prescription. which this can be helpful. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone with BPPV come in. They've been having vertigo for months. They've seen their doctor. They've been given medication. They've maybe gone and seen a neurologist and gone through other testing. And then they come to physical therapy. And in one session, their symptoms are significantly reduced. It's not always that easy, but it's not unusual either. If you're having symptoms of BPPV, it might make sense to try physical therapy first, because maybe in just one or a few visits, we can significantly impact your symptoms. And then if that doesn't help, then you can always go on to, the doctor or the neurologist or further interventions such as that. So thank you very much for attending. I hope that you've gotten some valuable information out of this. And certainly if you have any questions, please feel free to call any of our offices. You can email us. My email is at the beginning of the presentation, keithb@villagefit.com. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.